Friends, Keir Starmer has announced another emergency. We've gone from a climate emergency to an emergency about standards in public life, all sorts of emergencies. This time, we have a housing emergency. And Keir Starmer has let us know that his big idea is that there are rundown bits of the Greenbelt, old petrol stations, scrapyards, former sewage works, which quite wrongly are not developed for housing to help us build more housing for people. So he has relabelled this the Grey Belt, and he wants us to know that the Labour Party, if they win the general election, will develop on the Grey Belt, but only after they have built on all of the brownfield sites first. So their policy is brownfield first, Grey Belt next. What after that? Well, no one knows. But joining me now is Milli Dodd, Senior Communications Manager at Just Build Homes. Maybe Milli knows. Milli, thank you very much for joining us here on the show. I assume you're quite supportive of this idea of building houses on degraded and dilapidated bits of the Greenbelt and making them available for younger people to buy.
Yeah, I think it's a really interesting initiative that holds the promise of addressing our severe housing shortage. Right. As you mentioned, there are brownfield sites within the Greenbelt, sites that already have buildings on them, which we could bring forward to deliver more homes.
But Milli, that's already the law, isn't it? It's passed in the Localism Act 2011 that local authorities are actually free to release damaged bits of Greenbelt, non-green bits of Greenbelt from the Greenbelt, build houses on them, and as long as they replace the Greenbelt with the sort of the field next to it, which may be pristine. So what more do you think this will do to build more houses when in fact it's already the case?
I think that there's a really big misconception about what the Greenbelt actually is, especially with the general public. I think a lot of the time when the Greenbelt's mentioned, people think of green fields and open space, but in fact, it's just a term to stop urban sprawl between cities. And having this new term to kind of separate this and highlight that there are these sites that can be brought forward, I think could really help.
Okay, so Milli, so you think it is the coining of a term, the Grey Belt, that will get more houses built? I'll just put to you, it is already the law of the land that houses can be built in the Greenbelt if it is a former scrapyard or a petrol station or, you know, not this sort of pristine sort of woodland or fields. So I put it to you again, all Keir Starmer is doing is stating what is already the law of the land. How is that going to get more houses built for younger people?
Well, I think that any initiative that is supporting new homes is a really big step forward. I think it's really great that Labour are coming out and taking the housing crisis seriously. And I think it would be really good if other kind of parties brought forward policies that publicise the housing crisis.
But sorry, we don't have to bring forward policies. This is already the law. This is already the law of England. Why do we have to bring out new laws which say, because this is already the law. This is my point. It won't build any more houses. I support it, which is why I voted for it. I was in the department that made this the law back in 2011. How is this going to get more houses built?
Yeah, I mean, we're not building enough houses as it is. So I think that by coming out and saying that they're going to do brownfield first is more about getting people to be more supportive of house building. We know it's a massive problem that when people suggest new developments, hundreds of people object. And by saying that they're going to do brownfield first and then kind of focus on this new Grey Belt, I think it's a really good thing for the public perception.
OK, well, Milli, you're not here as a spokesperson for the Labour Party. Of course, brownfield first is already policy. Would you like to see more political parties, the Conservative Party, the Liberal Party, all of the major political parties, be even more radical than this? For a long time, I've believed that the way we build more houses in this country is actually to build on green fields or even in some cases the green belt and create new towns. Now, if we had a radical policy from any of the political parties, not a political point I make, which said, look, we are going to build 10, 15, 20,000 houses in this new area where there isn't anything at the moment and build all the infrastructure, do you think they're the sort of radical ideas that would get Britain building again?
Yeah, I mean, we need more homes of all types. I think the garden communities and all of these big developments are great, but ultimately we have a massive housing shortage and we need all types of development to keep going forward and to be approved to help get the homes we need approved and built.
Milli, I agree with you. Who do you think is to blame for the lack of planning permissions coming forward? Do you think it's the government or do you think it's local councils who are refusing to grant the planning permissions?
I personally think that it's pushed by the planning system itself. It's overcomplicated, objectors dominate it, and a lot of the work that I do with Just Build Homes is to help people who are directly affected by the housing crisis have a voice in the overcomplicated planning system. Because when you have supporters of house building who are vocal and having their voices heard, it's easier for decision makers to make a decision about the merits of the scheme rather than the politics.
Milli, I completely agree with you about that. It is a massively overcomplicated system. And thank you so much for all the work you are doing to raise this, because it is an absolute disgrace that we're not building more houses in this country. And I want to see, look, I'm a Tory MP. I want to see radicalism from all parties about building homes for young people, including my own. And it's interesting to hear what the Labour Party's had today. Thank you for joining us. Really appreciate you coming on the show.